Oh. Wow. How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf 5, I think, of Masechta Sotah. Friends, how's Masechta Sotah going? I feel like I've been asking it every day. I'm just excited about Masechta Sotah. Have you been able to tell that I'm more excited? I feel like I know what to do. We got a lot to do today in the Maaseh because we got a bunch to do on Daled Amud Beis, and I think we're going to try and get to the Mishnah on Vav Amud Aleph. So I feel like it's kind of like a daf and a half almost today, but it's not very difficult stuff. It's a lot. It's like like Tainus, for example. It's like Agarita, but the Agaritas, they take time because it's a lot to do. Okay, and as I said yesterday, we stopped early yesterday because today's daf talks about the sugya of gasus haruach, of haughtiness, and I figured we may as well just do the whole sugya in one day. So I kind of stopped right before we start talking about that. So let's get started over here. I believe we got to, Babayot. So I think we got to about 5 lines before it gets wide on Daf Daled Amud Beis. Umay ve'eshes ish nefesh yikar tatzud. Yo, got it? Cool. Umay is the middle of the line. Umay ve'eshes ish nefesh yikar tatzud. The pasuk says that a married woman, a nefesh yikar tatzud. What does that mean? Amar Reb Chia bar Abba, Amar Reb Yochanan. Says Reb Chia bar Abba, name Reb Yochanan. Kol adam sheish bo gasus haruach. Anybody who has a gasus haruach, haughtiness, which we're saying is this nefesh yikara, this haughtiness, in the end will come to the sin of sleeping with a married woman. So that's what it means. Ve'eshes ish, right? Shenemar, as the Bible says, ve'eshes ish nefesh yikara tatzud, that a person who's haughty will end up being with a married woman. Amar Rava says, Rava, hi nefesh yikara nefesh gavoya mi ba'ilei. Rava asked 2 kashas on this exegesis, expounding. Question number 1 is then it shouldn't be nefesh yikara, it should be nefesh gavoya, a haughty soul. And secondly, he tatzud mi ba'ilei. It should be that the soul, right? It implies the pasuk implies that eshes ish nefesh yikar tatzud, that the eshes ish is going to come after this haughty person. But the truth is, it should really be fakert. It should be that the haughty person, right? That it's the haughtiness which is the source of it. So it should be the haughty person should come after the eshes ish. Elo amar Rove, says Rove, kol haba al eshes ish, a fellow who sleeps with a married woman, afilu lo matera dichsiv ba yikari mipninim. Even if the fellow studied the Holy Torah, we study the Holy Torah, Babylon Talmud. So even if a person studies the Holy Torah, about which it says yikari mipninim, that it's even more precious than pearls. It's more precious than the high priest who goes to the inner sanctuary. And nonetheless, he will end up going to hell if he's haughty. Alright, fine. Amar Yochanan says Reb Yochanan Shim ben Yechai, kol adam sheish bo gasus haruach, somebody who's haughty, ki lo over avodas kachavim. Ho ho. It's like he worships idols. Getchkis. Ksivach, it says over here, Toyavas Hashem kol gvalev, that anybody who's haughty is the abomination of God. It says by Avodah Zarah, don't bring abominations into your house. Rabbi Yochanan Didei Omar says Rabbi Yochanan, Ki'ilu kafir be'ikr. Person who's haughty, it's like he's denying the existence of the Eibishter. Shneimar, the Bible says, V'ram levavcha v'shachachtas Hashem Elokecha v'gomer, that a person gets haughty and he forgets about the Eibishter. Rabbi Chama bar Chanina Omar Kilubal ha'arayis. Says Rabbi Chama bar Chanina, that a person who's haughty, it's like he has relations with forbidden relations. It says by haughty people that haughty people are the abomination of God. And it says by Arayas, it refers to Arayas as To'evas. Ula says it's like he built an unsanctioned altar outside of the temple when it was not allowed. Shneimar, the pasuk says, "Chadlu lachim in adam asher neshama b'aypoi," that people who are haughty, ki bameh nechshavu, how, right? They are not considered anything but al tikre bameh ela bama. Don't say bameh how, with what, rather say bama. That a person who's haughty it's like they build unsanctioned altars outside of the temple when they're not allowed. My yad liyad lo yinake. Right? If you look at the pasuk, that pasuk is Toyevas Hashem kol gvalev, that anybody who is haughty is the abomination of God. Yad liyad lo yinake. What does that mean? Yad liyad lo yinake. Hand to hand, he will not be cleaned. Amar Rav kol abal eshes ish, that a person who is baal eshes ish, he sleeps with a married woman, right? As it says, Toavas Hashem, right? We said toeva is like a abomination, which is like toeva. It's like a arayis. Afilu k'nei lakadosh baruch hu shamayim va'aretz ka'Avram, lakadosh baruch hu shamayim va'aretz ka'Avram Avinu. Even if a person is like Avram Avinu, who made people aware of the Eibishter, dichsiv be'ari moisi yodi el Hashem kel elyon koinei shamayim va'aretz. It says about Avram Avinu that I raise up my hands. So his yodi is like yad liyad. So even if a person spreads the Eibishter all across the world like Avram Avinu, nonetheless, le'inach midina shaganim, he won't be spared from hell. Kasha l'dvei, Reb Shila has a kasha with this explanation. Hayad liyad lo yinoke yodi mi boile. It shouldn't say yad liyad if it was the comparison to Avram Avinu about who it says arimosi yodi. It should say yodi, not liyad, not yad liyad. Ela amid Reb Shila afilu kibel teir k'meisher rabbeinu. Even if he received the Torah like our teacher Moses. About whom it says, Mimino Ejdas Lomo, that Moshe Rabbeinu received the Torah from the right hand of God. Still, he's going to go to hell. Kasha le Rabbi Yochanan, ha yad liyad, yad miyad mi boile. Rabbi Yochanan still has a kasha with that, because still, what does it mean yad liyad? It should be yad miyad, that Moshe Rabbeinu's hand received it from the hand of God, but it says yad liyad, to another hand. Ella Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan, afilu oset stoke ba'seiser, even if a fellow gives charity in secret, tichsiv matan b'seiser yichper af v'gomer, that person gives a charity in secret, it's a good thing, and that's yad liyad. You give it from one hand to another. No, you're not going to medina shal. Still, if you sleep with a married woman, you're going to go to hell. All right. What do you want me to tell you? Well, sleep with a married woman who you're not married to. Okay. So how do we know that it's a lav, that it's an isser to be haughty? Rava says, Rava Miziri, the name is Ziri, Shimu va'azinu al tigbo. Listen up, don't be haughty. So al tigbo, don't be haughty, it's a lav. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Omar, me'ocha, v'rom livavcha, v'shachachta. Well, that the pasuk says, well, you'll get haughty and you're going to forget about God. And the pasuk says, don't forget about God. And if you get haughty, you're going to forget about God. And it says, don't forget about God. Whenever it says hishamer, right, guard yourself, or lest, or don't, it's a losaisis. So therefore, when it says and it says so it means that you over and alive if you're haughty. Darish of Avire, Rav Avire darshant. Zimna Namala Mishmei Rav Asi, Zimna Namala Mishmei Rav Ami. Okay, sometimes he said in the name of Rav Asi, sometimes he said in the name of Rav Ami. Kol Adam Sheish Begasus Haruach, a fellow who's haughty, the sof mismait. In the end, he thinks he's so haughty. In the end, he's going to be a little shmendrik. Shneimar, the Pasuk says, Romu me'at. If you're haughty, you're going to be a shmendrik. Vishema Tomar Yeshnu Ba'olam, maybe you're going to say he's going to exist in the world. Tamlam Veinenu. No, he's gone. But if he does tshuva, Nesov Bismanu Kavrom Avinu. Well, then he's fine. He won't die young. He'll die at his proper time. Like Avrom Avinu, Shenemar Vihumchu Kekol Yikpetzun. Did I read that right? Vihumchu Kakol Yikoftzun. Oh, okay. That if you make yourself lowly, humble, so then it'll be like kakol, kavrom, Yitzchok, v'Yakov, dichsivu, bakol, mikol, kol, like Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, about whom it says bakol, mikol, kol. So if you make yourself humble, then you'll be like Avram, Yitzchok, and Yaakov, and you'll live a proper life. But if not, you're going to be cut down like the heads of the stalks of the wheat, of the grain. So what exactly is the head of the stalks? So Ravuna and Machlokes Ravuna of Chizda, one opinion is that it's like the beard at the top of the stalks of wheat. atzmo. One of the other opinions that it's not the beard at the top of the stalk, it's the stalk itself. So I understand according to the opinion who says that it's like the beard at the top of the stalk. Well, that's why it says it's like the head of the stalk. It's like the beard at the top of the stalk. Like, yeah, beard, like I have. I'm thinking about growing my beard longer. Friends, did you notice I got a haircut? Lemaisa, I'll tell you, it's hard to tell. I don't mind it. I think the haircut's decent, but I'll be honest. Some people are surprised they got a haircut. They're like, what? You need a haircut? I said, I actually just got a haircut. All right, Akaponim. Don't tell my father. Some say it's taka like the. Wait, so where am I? But if you say that it's like the stalk itself, so what does that have to do with the head of the stalk? So well, when it comes to, right, it says that you're going to be cut down like the stalk itself. Which stalks do you cut down when you go into your field looking for some stalks? The ones that are the tallest, the ones that, right, the ones that are at the top. Somebody who's lowly, Rav Huna Rav Chizde Chad Omar Osi iti dako v'charomer ani es dako. So one opinion is that the lowly fellow is with me, is with God. V'charomer ani at es dako. I am here below with the lowly fellow. Mistavik mandamer ani es dako. And it makes sense like the opinion who says that I, God, am with the with the low fellow. Because the Eibishter, he passed over, he left all of the mountains and the hills, and instead he went with Har Sinai, the lowliest of the mountains, V'logova, Har Sinai Lamaila. He didn't bring Har Sinai up to him, but he went down to Har Sinai. Amr Yosef Adam Yomad Adam Midas Kono. A fellow should learn from the Eibishter. That the Eibishter left all of the big mountains and hills, and he went with Har Sinai, the lowliest of them all. A fellow is haughty, where legado kasher, you have to cut the fellow down like an avodah zarah tree. It says that the haughty people have to be cut down. That they're asheras, the getchke trees, you have to cut them down. So we see a connection between geduim and tigadeun, that a fellow is haughty, you have to cut down like an ashera tree. Says a fellow is haughty, in afro ninner, he's not, if I understand correctly, it means he's not going to be zochet to tchias hamesim. Shenemar, the Pasuk says by tchias hamesim, akitzu v'anu shoichnei offer, that wake up and move around the people dwelling in the dust. It doesn't say those who are lying and buried in the dust. Those who dwell among the dust. A fellow who became a neighbor to dust in his lifetime, a lowly, humble fellow, will be zeichet to tchias hamesim. V'amar Belazer calls him sheish bugasas ruach. Says Belazer, a fellow is haughty. Shechina miyaleles olav. The Eibishter laments over the individual. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, v'gavoya mimercha kiyada, that a person's gavoya, a person is haughty, so from far away he laments. Darash of Avira v'temer Belazer barei shelo k'midas hakadosh baruch hu midas basav adam. That the way of the Eibishter is not like the way of the people. Midas basav adam gavoya reis hagavoya. When it comes to the people, so how do the people work? The very fancy upper echelon hangs out with other very fancy upper echelon. Ven gavoy rayas a shuffle. But the people in the upper echelon, they don't know what happens, with the regular people. The people in the upper echelons, they don't hang out with the low, with the pasha yidden. Aval midas hakadosh baruch hu eno came, but that's not the case with the Eibishter. Hu gavoya v'rayas a shuffle. The Eibishter is obviously up high, but he sees the lowly people. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Ki Ram Hashem v'shafal yireh, that the Eibishter is high up, but he sees those who are low down. Omer v'chizda v'tema, my ukve called him sheish bugasas haruach, a fellow's haughty. Omer kadosh baruch hu ein ani v'hu yichol lader ba'olam. Says the Eibishter that a fellow's haughty, there's not enough room here for the both of us. Shnema, as the pasuk says, Miloshni b'seisa re'eyu, that a fellow who speaks negatively about his friend in private, also Otzmis, I'll cut him down. Gva'inayim rechav levav, a fellow who's haughty, also lo uchal, I can't do it. Al tikrei oso eleito, don't say him, but with him, that ito la'uchal, that that there's not enough room in this world for the both of us, says the Eibishter to a fellow who's haughty. That those who say that this is referring to a fellow who speaks lashon hara, Shinam, as the pasuk says, milashni basei sereu osu atzmis, that a fellow who speaks negatively about his friend in private, I will cut him down. Amar Alexandri, says Rabbi Alexandri, a fellow is haughty, even a small little wind is gonna ruin him, is gonna blow him away. Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Varishoim kayom nigrosh, that the nudniks are like the sea, umayom sheyeshbo kamirvios ruach kimo ocharto, the sea that has obviously quite a few reviuses of water in it. A shtickle wind can cause a tumult. A fellow who only needs one revius of blood to live on, which I think is Aloch Mushmisina. I think somehow the Gemara assumes that it's a revius of blood, which is what's necessary to live on. Certainly, then a little wind can blow the nudnik away. It says of Chia bar Ashi, the name Rav, that a Talmid Chacham needs to have an eighth of an eighth, a tiny bit of haughtiness. And says of Huna B'Rei Yeshua that tiny bit of haughtiness that is necessary for Talmid Chacham is a crown like the beard of a stalk of wheat. Rava says, look, it's a shtickle slippery slope, right? You're in an excommunication if you have too much haughtiness, but also it's no good if you don't have any haughtiness at all. You have to have like a tiny amount of haughtiness. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, lo minav lo mutzas, whereas Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, no way, no how. I don't want anything to do with haughtiness at all. Mizutu dichsiv bei tayavas Hashem kol k'valev. We've just spent the last Amud talking about how terrible it is to have haughtiness. Right? It says of Nachman bar Yitzchak, is it no small thing? That which the pasuk says that it's the abomination of God, anybody who's haughty. It says of Nachman bar Yitzchak, I don't want anything to do with haughtiness. I don't even want an eighth of haughtiness. I don't want any haughtiness at all. Amar Chizkiah, says Chizkiah, in Tfilaso shel Adam nishmas elam kein mesim liba kibaser. Says Chizkiah that a fellow's prayer is only heard if he makes himself like meat, soft like meat, not hard like stone. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, that it says that every month Yavai kol baser l'shtachvos v'gomer, the baser, the flesh, will come to bow down, but not the stones. Amar B'Zera, baser ksiv bei v'nirpa, Adam lo ksiv bei v'nirpa. When it comes to tzaras, right, it says there's different psukim by tzaras. You have ubaser kiyebo be'oro shchin v'nirpa, it will be healed. But it says adam kiyebo or besaro nega tzaras kisiyebo adam lo ksiv. I'm reading Rashi, but basically there's different psukim when it comes to tzaras. Some of them say baser, some of them say adam. Interestingly, the psukim that mention baser, flesh, also mention v'nirpa, that they will be healed. But the ones that just say adam will not. Right, it doesn't say anything in those psukim about being healed. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan, Adam, that Adam is an acronym for Efer, Dam, Mara, ash, blood, and bile. Basar is an acronym for Busha, Srucha, Rima, embarrassed, putrid, and wormy. Ikadami Sha'ol, Dichsiv B'Shin. Those who say that it's not Srucha, which is a Samach, and we need a Shin, rather it's Sha'ol, hell. Amar Rav Ashi, says Rav Ashi, called Adam Sheish Bogasas Ruach, a fellow who is haughty, the sof nifchas, in the end he's going to be demoted from his haughtiness. Shenemar, the pasuk says, Veloses Velasapachas, that ve'ein se'es eloshon gavoa, se'es means haughty, high up. Shenemar, v'akol ha'horim ha'romim, v'alagvos ha'nisos, I believe, did I read that right? Ha'nisos, that Loses means high up, as the pasuk says, that these high mountains and these high hills, ve'ein sapachas el tefela, and sapachas means secondary. Shenemar svachenina el achas akunos lecho pas lechem. It says by Eli that after he got in trouble because of what his kids were doing, it says that you're gonna have to kind of ask to be like secondary, to be joined together with another group of kohanim just so you can eat some bread. So we see that if you get high up, you become like a secondary situation, not important. Amr Yeshua ben Levi, says Yeshua ben Levi, come and see how gewaldig the lowly people are lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu, before the Eibishter Sheb'shasha Beis Hamikdash Kayim, that when there was a holy temple, Adam Makriv Ola biyado, when there was a holy temple, so a fellow would offer a korban ola. Okay, so great. So he offered a korban ola. Didn't offer a shlomim. If he offers an ola, so he offered an ola. Great. Mincha biyado. If he offers a flour offering, okay, so he offered a flour offering. Avamisha died to shvala. But a fellow who's lowly, but a fellow who's a lowly fellow, it's as if he offered all the korbanos, not just an ola, not just a mincha, all of them. Shenemar, as the Apostle says, zivche elokim ruach nishbar, that a broken spirit is the zivche elokim, the offerings, plural, all of them. Not only that, and his prayer will not be disgusted. Shenemar, as the Apostle says, lev nishbar v'nidke, that a fellow with a broken heart, elokim lotivze, the Eibishter will not turn away. It says, a fellow who evaluates his ways in the world and is thinking about, am I doing good things, bad things? He merits and he sees the salvation of God. Shneimar, as the Apostle says, somebody who places his ways, I will show him the salvation of God. Don't say one who places, rather one who evaluates. One who evaluates. Dennis, I skipped the word derech because I have a note here in the Goz V'Tzionim that says you can skip that word, and I think it technically makes a little more sense with that, right? Al tekre v'som el v'sham. You can mention derech oichet, but okay. Alright, derech, fine. So now the Gemara goes weiter in the Mishnah. Keitzid mekani lo v'chulei. Ho ho. So the Mishnah had said, I think we're done with the hardiness stuff now. So now the Mishnah had said, ho ho. Now we're wrapping up the Mishnah. I think I'd like to try and get to the next Mishnah of Vav Aleph. The Mishnah had said, how does kinoi work? How does kinoi work? So, well, he says to her, don't speak to so-and-so. So now, Hagufa Kasha, the Gemara says, I don't understand the Mishnah. On the one hand, on the one hand, the Mishnah says, how does kinoi work? Well, the husband says to his wife, in front of two witnesses, don't speak to so-and-so. Alma dibur stiru, which seems to be implying that the issue is speaking. If she speaks to him, then she has to drink the Sotah. But then it says immediately after that if she then goes and speaks to the fellow, no big deal. She's mutaris to her husband. She could still eat truma if he's a kohen and she's a bas Yisrael. Okay, so clearly that means that speaking is garnished. It's nothing. So Amar Abaye says, Abaye, this is how you have to understand the Mishnah. Al tidabri, if he says to her, don't speak to so and so, vidibra, and she spoke to him. Al tidabri vinistera, or if he warns her, do not speak to the fellow, vinistera, and then she secluded herself with the fellow. Al tisteri, if he warned her, don't seclude yourself with the fellow, vidibra imo, and then she spoke to him. In all of those cases, adayin mutaris levesu, mutaris lechol b'truma. She would still be permitted to her husband, she would still be permitted to eat truma, right? If he warns her not to talk to him, it's irrelevant. So if she talks to him, even if she was secluded with him, it doesn't matter. If he warned her about talking, it doesn't matter. Now, what he does need to do is he needs to warn her about being secluded with him. Now, if he warns her about being secluded with him, and she speaks to him, still, nothing. But if he warned her about being secluded with the fellow, and then she goes into this private place, and they're together for enough time that they could have had at least ha'ara'ah, at that point, then she can no longer be with her husband, and she can no longer eat truma. And said the Mishnah that if the husband dies, she does chalitza and not yibum, right? So if you have a married woman, the husband, warned her, don't be with so-and-so, and then they were secluded together, she's a sotah be'etzim. So they're technically still married, but they're not able to be with each other until they get it checked out via the waters. Now, what happens if he now dies? So if he dies, what happens in terms of yibum? Technically, they're still married. So the Mishnah says, don't do yibum, do chalitza. Amai. Tisabim nami yabume. The Gemara wants to know why. Why can't you do yibum? They're technically still married. So we're going to see three different answers of Rav Yosef. So first version of Rav Yosef, Amar Rav Yosef says Rav Yosef, Amar Kar, the pasuk says V'yotzim mibeso v'alchav v'ayis li'shacher. That the pasuk says in the context of gittin, right? The pasuk says V'motzah ba'er v'azdover. They have a husband and a wife. They're married, and the husband finds out something inappropriate, and it says, look, so they get divorced. V'chasav v'sefer krisus. So then it says they get divorced. V'yotzim mibeso, and she leaves his house. V'alchav v'ayis li'shacher, and then she can marry somebody else. Li'shacher. Okay, she can go and marry somebody else. But not to her, not to the yavam, right? Meaning, if he were in a situation where there was a sotah and he had warned her, and and then he died, so then there would not be yibum, right? She can, if they get divorced, or if she becomes a widow regularly, so then and she can go. She can go and marry somebody else. But in the situation of Sotah, where the husband dies, no, then in that case she would not do yibum, she would do chalitza. Amar le Abaye, elamiata chalitza nami lo tiboy. So Abaye says to Rav Yosef, well, if we're saying from Exeris HaKosov that there's no yibum, so if there's no yibum, then there shouldn't be chalitza either. Why does Mishnah say that she does chalitza? Amar le, so if Yosef answers, ilu isi lebal miloboya get. Look, if the husband was still alive, they would at least need a get. They would at least need a get. I guess if she needs to have the mesota, but I guess let's say a witness comes and says that she definitely had bia. So in that case, she wouldn't drink the mesota, and then then she would get a get. Right, so if the husband was still alive, then she would need a get. Hashanami to buy chalitza. So now also when he dies, right, she still needs some. Right, technically there's yibum, but we're saying don't do yibum. She still would at least need to do chalitza. These dames, those who say Amar Rav Yosef says Rav Yosef, Rachmana Amar Rav Yosef beis avalcha v'aisol lish acher to lo listerei levese. There are those who say that Rav Yosef says, look, the pasuk says, right, as we learned the other day, we said that if a woman is mizaneh, so it's like a worm in the sesame seeds, right? It's no good. So it says, look, it says kimotzu ba'er v'azdover, that the husband found something inappropriate in their relationship, and now the pasuk says that he writes her a get and v'yotza mibeso v'alcha v'ayis li'shacher. She goes to somewhere else to lolister leveses, so that she doesn't stick around and ruin his household. Why would then they do yibum and keep her in the household? So better, no, the whole point is to get her out of the household. So certainly there's no yibum. To which Abaye says, well, if we're saying that in this context of, it says kimotzu be'er v'azdover, and then it says that they write a get and she goes somewhere else, if we're concerned that she's going to ruin his house, why does it say why is it that she can go then and marry somebody else? Don't we have to be concerned that she's going to ruin his family? So Amalei, Mikara Minon La, Ole Bal Korche. What are we forcing this other fellow to marry her? Okay, he can do what he wants. V'ikad Amri, the those who say Amar of Yosef says of Yosef, Akosov Kro Acher, that the pasuk refers to this other person as an Acher. Right? Again, by Gittin it says, right, V'yotza v'oisa lish Acher, V'yotza b'esa v'holcha v'oisa lish Acher, and so we're calling this second husband acher, different, other. She'enzo ben zugo sharishon, that this other fellow is different than the original husband. Shezeh hotzi rishon mibeso, that the first husband is removing something not good from his house. V'zeh, right, this nus, the ervas davar that he found. V'zeh hichnis rishon l'soch beso, whereas the second husband is post get is bringing this whatever was not good into his house. And you are suggesting that there should be yibum in this case, right? By the Sotah when he dies. I mean, the whole point is that something not good happened, and we're trying to get rid of it. So Amalei Abaye Elmiata Nises La'acher V'Meiz Below Bonim Lo Tisyabim. But if that's the case, that we're saying that the pasuk calls the other guy acher, to say that it's a bad situation, and because of that, if the husband dies in the context of Sotah, the brother should not do yibum because it's a negative situation. Well, then if she then gets remarried to somebody else and that person dies and they don't have children, so then should there not be yibum over there because we're saying it's a negative situation? So Gabe Dahai Mia b'shem tov avakaimen. To which the Gemara says, yeah, but the second husband apparently not, everything was cool. Okay, whatever. The first husband, for some reason, kimatzu ba'ervas davar, there was something not good, and they got divorced. But then she remarried somebody else. There's no indication that with the other husband there was anything negative. So in that case, sure, the second husband can do, if he dies, so then the brother would do yibum. Rava Omar. So Rava learns kavachomer. Rava learns that there would be no yibum in this case from a kavachomer. Im ne'esra b'muter lo. No. What happens in the situation of Sotah? Situation of a Sotah is you have a married woman, right? Husband and wife. Obviously they're permitted to each other, they're married to each other. But then something happens, right? There's this whole kinui and stira thing. All of a sudden she becomes forbidden to her husband. This person who she was permitted to, she now becomes forbidden to. The brother who was Eishes Ach, the whole time, so then certainly she would be forbidden to him. If to somebody who she was permitted to initially, she becomes forbidden to, somebody who's forbidden to milichatchila, Eishes Ach, certainly she won't become permitted to, right? She remain forbidden to, and that's why she would not do yibum in this case. So again, Rav Omer says, Rav Kavachomer, if she becomes forbidden to somebody who she was permitted to, so then certainly somebody who she was forbidden to, the brother, certainly she will be forbidden to, i.e., and if her husband dies, there would not be yibum. Abai says to Rav, what if you have a Kohen Gadol who's married to an almana? Kohen Gadol is married now. A high priest is not allowed to marry a widow. A regular priest can marry a widow. The high priest cannot marry a widow. Vames, and then the high priest, right? And he does marry a widow. Vames, and then the high priest dies. Ve'eshlo ach kohen hedget, and he has a brother who's a kohen hedget. Now the brother who's a kohen hedget is allowed to marry a widow. Lo tisyabim. Right? So according to this logic, we should say that the brother should not do yibum. Because if she was forbidden to somebody who was permitted to her, i.e. the Kohen Gadol. Now the Gemara is going to ask in a second, what do you mean she's permitted to the Kohen Gadol? She's a widow, she's not allowed to the Kohen Gadol. Well, certainly she should be unable to do yibum with the brother of the Kohen Gadol, right, who was Eishes Ach. So asir v'kaima. What do you mean that she became forbidden to her husband? To the Kohen Gadol. She was always forbidden to the Kohen Gadol. She was a widow. Muterla, somebody who was permitted to her. Asirla, the Kohen Gadol was forbidden to her. She was not allowed to marry him. So, Asirla, so Ella Eishes Kohen Shene Esra Vames. No, so rather, what if you have, Shene and Vames. What if you have a woman who's married to a Kohen? Now, of course, we know from Yevamos that unfortunately, or maybe from Ksubas too, I don't know. But unfortunately, if a Eishes Kohen is Nensa, so then she can no longer remain with her, or she can't remain married to her husband who is a priest. So in that case, she was, right, she was permitted to her, I'm saying Nensa instead of the English word, because I think one of my other videos got blocked. I think the first half of Yevamos is actually like behind like a filter on YouTube because of the subject matter. Anyways, so you have a situation where you have a husband and wife. He's a kohen and they're married, and so they're permitted to each other. But then she's nensa, and then they're no longer permitted to each other anymore, right? So in that case, it's just kohen shenensa and vames, and then the kohen dies. V'yeshlo acholo. And there's a brother who's a chalal. So now a chalal is allowed to be with a woman who is ne'ensa. Not a kohen, but a chalal can. But we'll say lo tisyabim, that there shouldn't be any yibum, because if she was forbidden to somebody who she was initially permitted to, right? She was permitted to her husband, but then because she was nensa, she's no longer permitted to her husband. Certainly the brother who she was forbidden to because of Eishes Ach, she should not become permitted to, right? So ba'asula lo kol shekain. So ones b'Yisrael mishra shari v'gabi dehai leka isur. Yeah, but the thing is, when it comes to ones, there, right. This is kind of apples and oranges, because ones by Yisrael is fine, and therefore, if there was never anything. There's never any concern by this brother, because the brother's a chalal, and that which was kind of a problem for the kohen, is really completely fine for the chalal, and therefore it's not a problem. They can do yibum. Friends, that was daf. What was it? Beis Gimel Dalet Hey, I think we said, of Masechta Sotah. We spent a lot of the daf talking about haughtiness and stuff, but then we talked about, it was kind of interesting, and then we talked about the stira, that the kinoi and stira, the kinoi has to be, don't be secluded with a certain person, and then they're secluded with each other. Then we talked about yibum, that if there's a sotah and then her husband dies, there's no yibum. Instead, there is chalitza. We saw different opinions of Rav Yosef about how to arrive at that. Friends, that was Afei of Masechta Sotah. I hope you enjoy. Peace out.